When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be
No.
an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
But by the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe and Corona TV.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? Do you like that music? It's new music. It's new music because it's late night Jaffe. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you've had an amazing day. I've had a wonderful day. I had a speaking engagement, which I haven't done as much these days because, you know, I'm a talk show host now. So, you know, I talk, but I talk to you as opposed to big corporations. Anyway, I hope you are well. I hope you are good. I hope you have an adult beverage. I forgot to mention to my guest today, to Tina, two things. One is, do you have your adult beverage? I've got myself, she says no, but she has time to get one if she chooses. Although, you know, it is 6 p.m. somewhere. Well, she's gone to get herself an adult beverage. Good for you, Tina. I am glad that you're going to be chilling with me and having a good night. Well, let's get into it, shall we? Today is Earth Day. It's April 22nd. It's Earth Day, and I want to show you something just amazing, 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 amazing. You are just going to love this. This is a rendering of what the Earth would look like without the water. Isn't this amazing? Let me just show it to you full screen. That is our beautiful third rock from the sun, but without any water. I don't know why. I'm just absolutely fascinated by it. I could look at it for hours. And I don't know what it tells me. Does it make me happy? Does it make me sad? Or does it just make me curious? Not really sure. But happy Earth Day to everyone, and I hope you're taking care of our planet because it's the only one we got, and so we may as well take care of it. Well, a little sneak preview for next week. Julie Rose, Carol Camera, Bill Guertin, I hope I'm pronouncing their names correctly, and the Black Sheep himself, Brent Menswar. We've got 2 12 noon shows, and we've got 2 late night Jaffe shows. It's going to be awesome. And then, of course, the week that was. But before we get into the week that was, we still have to take care of the week that is. Tina Greenbaum, and I've had a long day. I should have said to her before, is it Greenbaum or Greenbaum? I would have said Greenbaum. Greenbaum or Greenbaum? She's going to tell me. We will find out soon enough. Everybody wants to know. People are intrigued. People are dying to know, is it Greenbaum or Greenbaum? Or is it Yellowbaum or Yellowbaum? We don't know, but we will find out. Tomorrow, we will find out what Tom Morris has to say. A friend of the show, a friend of mine, a previous guest. Tom will be my co-host tomorrow morning as we reflect on Tina Greenbaum or Greenbaum. Little bit of an update on the Jaffe coin. You know, there are a couple of interesting things about the Jaffe coin. At the moment, the Jaffe coin is $1.96. But one thing you will notice, first of all, you'll notice a few things. One is lots of people are buying Jaffe, and that's the thing about blockchain. It's all public. It's all publicly available. But another thing you can actually see is something that's called weekly rally rewards. That means that 10,000 rally rewards will be distributed to all the Jaffe coin holders, which is an estimated USD value of $8,400. And based on your percentage of ownership of Jaffe coin, you will receive a piece of that. That's what I love about this creator economy, that we really are building community. We are building an economy together, and we all get to share in it as well. Whether you are a Jaffe coin holder, a regular, like Tom Morris is, or a previous guest like Tom Morris is, you all get an opportunity to participate. Well, let's do birthdays quickly. Not many people on Facebook, but the great Ty Montague, the incredible Scott Powell, and the magnificent Tim Melbourne, amongst, you may as well just mention them all, Alan Fuller, Dave Dyer, and Amy Huddleston Worley. And too many people to mention on LinkedIn, but John Sumroy, Akshay, Aurora, and David Bryant, happy birthday to all of you. Well, now it's time to get into our seated soliloquy. And our soliloquy today is called Dun 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 Dun. I'm not going to sing anymore, but I am going to play you some music. Ernest Hemingway once said, "Courage is grace under pressure." Now, I think it's entirely possible he was motherlessly drunk at the time he said that. These days, it feels like we're constantly under this never-ending pressure that hits us from every side, angle, or direction. The British have an entirely cultural meme dedicated to keep calm and carry on. But what do you do when it seems like the world has gone mad and everything is collapsing in around you? How do you maintain your composure? How do you figure out a way to ground yourself, control your emotions, and ultimately prevail? Well, damned if I know, but I do know one thing. My guest tonight can add some pearls of wisdom to the growing body of work and archives that I've actually amassed and learnt on the show, from the likes of meaningful and mindful forces like Daniel Gutierrez, Lodro Rinsler, Judy Glover, and many more. I do think it's important to maintain an exterior sense of calm when things are tough. If not for you, then for those around you, the people that depend on you, your family, your co-workers, your community. But that said, it shouldn't come at a cost. It shouldn't come at a price. The price of your sanity, the price of your authenticity, the price of your mental health. Suppressing emotions and bottling things in serves no purpose. In fact, it can and often does backfire. Showing vulnerability and leaning into fear, but not allowing it to consume you, is no longer a sign of weakness, quite the opposite, in fact. Saying I don't know or asking for help is quite empowering, even liberating. Above all, recognizing that the burden of pressure does not have to fall squarely on one person's shoulders. It can be shared. It must be shared. And you'd be surprised who would willingly accept or even embrace the ability to lighten your load. Perhaps the best way to end this soliloquy is a quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. It seems fitting to have to jump from the sublime, Hemingway, to the ridiculous, Adams. We might not be able to completely eradicate pressure, but we can certainly reduce or even minimize it, especially when it is self-imposed. And with enough acceptance, practice, and perspective, who knows, it might even prove to be the perfect catalyst for growth, development, and transformation. Well, that was tonight's soliloquy. I'm going to bring on Tina in a moment. But first of all, just see who's watching tonight. Mr. Stephen Rubin is here. Who else is here as well? Anna Bowman is here, and she says, "Hi, Tina." Well, you'll get to say hi to her in a moment. Seth Sparks says, kind of sounded like the opening to Ice Ice Baby. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. How dare you? how dare you take David Bowie and Queen and turn it into Vanilla Ice? And Glenn says, I would love to know how to achieve inner calm these days. Well, you are in luck, my friend, because Tina Greenbaum is going to tell us exactly how to achieve that inner calm. Tina works with executives who want to increase their performance level in high stakes, high pressure situations. An optimal performance specialist and sports psychology consultant, Tina's signature program, Mastery Under Pressure, empowers leaders and their teams using cutting-edge technology, neuroscience, energy psychology, that sounds awesome, sports psychology, and current learning theory. In addition to a Mastery Under Pressure team program, Tina also works with CEOs and senior level management as a confidential thera-coach on a one-to-one basis. Her expertise in guiding executives through their psychological and personal issues helps her clients cope with the demands that their personal struggles place on them as they strive to be atop their sector. As she likes to say, the only thing standing between you and your goals is, you know the answer, is you. But now the you is you, Tina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I look at that pre-COVID picture, right? And I could create a lot of pressure. Oh, I don't look like that anymore. This is really me, but this is me.
I love the you right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there is so much to talk about, just even in your wonderful bio. For example, the concept of being a thera-coach, which I assume is part therapist and part coach. So I don't know where to start because, you know, you are an optimal performance specialist, but in the green room before, you actually described yourself as a professional listener. You have so many intriguing titles. Tell me about all of them. What is a thera-coach? What is a professional listener?
Well, the truth is we don't know what to call me. You know, we have many conversations about this with my team, but the truth is I am a psychotherapist by training. I have a master's in social work, so I'm an LCSW, and I've had a private practice in Washington, D.C., New York City, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Long Island, and now out in San Francisco. So I've worked with many high-powered, intriguing individuals, actors, dancers, performers, athletes, bank presidents, and so on. But the truth is that we're all people. Underneath all of that, there's a human condition that repeats itself. I like to say there's only so many themes in the human condition, but there's an infinite variation. So we all have our own unique stories, but we follow certain, at this point for me, predictable patterns. And the therapist part of me, the coachy part of me, I'm really a teacher at heart. I love to teach skills. And that's how this Mastery Under Pressure kind of got started. I would listen to people and they would say, oh, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. I said, great, but you're not changing. And now what do we do? So you have a lot of insight. And what do you do when you want to go for that next podcast that you're doing, or you want to be a TV star, or you want to go for the next interview? And all the things that happen inside is the area that I love to work with. You know, it's that inner game and kind of tweaking it so that we become quite masterful.
You know, I normally find a quote and I put that quote right at the end, but tonight I'm going to put it right at the beginning for a very simple reason. So first of all, this is your quote: winning comes down to who can execute under pressure. And I think the quote itself is not that, it's not that profound, but I guess the person who said it was a wonderful person, Billie Jean King. And what I noticed is when looking for quotes under coping under pressure, so many of them were sports stars, athletes, but also actors. It's always funny, sometimes there's a particular subject and you see, for example, you know, putting on masks or imposter syndrome, and you find actors, you find specific, you know, sometimes it's authors, sometimes it's philosophers, but in this case, a lot of actors, a lot of celebrities
Yes.
are the people being quoted. I just found that to be very interesting.
And it is, and that's where the sports psychology comes in. I have 3 sons. 2 of them were very competitive soccer players. And I used to kind of stand on the sidelines and say, I don't know a lot about soccer, but I know a lot about psychology. And if it's the end of the game and you're the one that's supposed to hit that penalty kick, I don't need to teach you how to kick. I need to teach you how to focus on the things that you need to focus on, because theoretically you should get that goal. The goalie is much smaller than the goalpost. And so why do so many fabulous players kind of misread and do all that? So focus is a really critical piece, both for an actor. I mean, it really is for everybody, but you say, why do actors and athletes have a similar, but they're performers. We have to perform under pressure in the moment. So it's really that in the moment that separates, again, the greats from the not so greats.
Well, there's another point as well, and that is the magnification of the moment as well. It's not just a moment. I mean, you and I, if you didn't perform tonight or I underperformed, it's slightly different. But I think when all the eyes are on you, I mean, I can almost I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now, but I think that is the difference between the winners and the losers. It's the people that can just blinker and drown out, or not drown out, but just drown out the noise and the external boos. And I mean, a great example, you said you love basketball. Isn't it amazing when a player is taking free throws, and everyone in the background waving those things and trying to distract them, but it never works. I don't even know why they do it, because they're able to just, avoid and filter out all of the distraction.
Well, again, it comes from practice and repetition. See, the thing about athletes, and this is my thing, kind of, we were talking about one of my pet peeves, is the thing about athletes is they know that they need to train the mind. And yet we put people into all kinds of other situations where they have to perform at the same level with no mind training. And so I can give you sort of an example of something for people to think about. I can't see you anymore, Joe. There you are.
I was just giving you the full screen.
Well, thank you. And that actually will be a really great example for the example that I want to talk about. So how do they do that? How do they focus at that level and be able to tune out all the noise wherever? So let's imagine that one of these rectangles is our conscious mind. These are the things that we can think about in the moment. I need to do this, I need to do that. And so it's finite. We only have a certain amount of space to fill this conscious mind. And if we overfill it, it spills over into the subconscious, and we don't have access to ourselves anymore. We're just kind of at behest of what our unconscious is giving us, the fears, what if this happens, what if that happens? So great athletes and great performers they focus on what we call task-related cues. So for you, Joseph, tonight, for you to be really good at what you do, what do you need to focus on?
I mean, it's very simple. You.
All right. And so if the phone rings and the dog barks and, and then you see somebody come and then you see them go, and then, somebody puts up a nasty comment, and how well do you think your focus on me is going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Completely distracted.
Right. So instead of having 100% of your attention, you now maybe have 30 or 40%. And then your performance will inevitably go down.
Well, I'll give you a very real example, which is, and there are 2 parts to it. The first part was when something went wrong. I was so hard on myself because I'm such a perfectionist that I wouldn't be able to just compartmentalize it and just put it aside and deal with it later. And then the other part of it was, whether it was having a bad show or having a technical difficulty, it was really difficult to be able to just, weed it out and just be in the moment and just keep moving on and say, let me make the most of what I have,
That's right.
as opposed to cry over the spilt milk. And I'm learning to get better at both of those.
Yes. And so the practice and the repetition and the practice and the repetition, you're actually creating new neural pathways in your brain. And so those things, those distractions that came up early when you were a beginner, because beginners, that's what happens. We're not trained. We don't have that skill level. And that's why, the athletes are easier to look at because they do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. If you watch the basketball players, every one of them has a ritual. This one will bounce the basketball a couple of times. This one will, kind of look at the line, and you watch them. And we watch Steph Curry a lot. And every time he finishes, his hand ends up. So these rituals, these traditions that they've created for themselves, allow them to focus on just the things that they need to focus on, and then depend on the part that they have studied and practiced over and over again. It's kind of like driving a car. There's a reason why we charge a lot of money for insurance for beginning drivers. I need to look in the mirror. I need to do X, Y, Z. Right?
It's muscle memory, but then also there, as we all know, like golf is a great example. How much of it, as they say, is mental, versus the physical ability is there. A scratch golfer is a scratch golfer. The difference between, a tee shot that's 310 yards or 314 yards is really negligible, but it is coping under pressure, mastery under pressure, that ultimately determines, the execution. As Billie Jean said, right? Winning comes down to who can execute under pressure.
That's right.
So we're going to get into the corporate version of that, or even just the personal version of that. But I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to embarrass you just slightly, and just find out about some fun facts about you. And I love these fun facts about you because I think in many respects, you and I are very similar. Maybe not completely, because one thing about you is you feel the need for speed. and I mean, I don't. I hate. Personally, I hate speed. But you are not a fly boy, but you must be a fly girl. Tell us about this love for speed.
I just always have. My brother used to have a motorcycle, and he taught me how to ride on the back of a motorcycle. I loved convertibles when I was in high school. Anybody that would have a convertible that would take me on a ride. Roller coasters. I like the front seat in the roller coaster. And so skiing, I don't need to ski the really big, difficult mountains. I just like in the end where I get down towards the bottom and I could just put my poles behind me and then shh. So I love the wind on my face and speedboats. Anything that, the beginning of just even taking off in a plane. I love it when it goes really, really, really fast. I can't say I've had a whole lot of it in the last year.
No. and it's funny because personally, I hate speed. I love being in the plane because I feel safe. I feel like when it's enclosed and I'm on the inside, very different to when I'm on the outside. And actually, my dad died in a motorboat accident when I was 4 years old. So it's not that surprising why I hate speed and specifically the ocean. So you don't need to be a thera-coach for that. I get it. But it's interesting how in the plane, I do love that. I do love sitting there in this thing, just like, at that moment. And it's weird how safe I feel, even though probably, it's just an illusion.
Well, I'm married to somebody that doesn't really love it the way that I love it. But it is, you asked me kind of what is some of the things that somebody doesn't know about me. And that's probably, I told him the other night, he didn't know that either. So But I do. It makes me feel alive, like really alive.
All right. Well, let's find out what else makes you feel alive. What else makes you feel alive is it's all the movies with you. I don't know what's going on, but you are a little bit of a rebel, aren't you? You like to live on the edge, push the envelope. Although most people wouldn't necessarily know you in that way. So tell us, and this is probably where you and I we do like to push. Tell us about this rebellious side to you.
Well, I always would say when I was younger that I would tick and everybody else would talk. You know, a lot of places I just didn't fit in. I'm very friendly, so people like me in general, and it's not hard for me to make friends. But I love deep conversation. You know, I love things that that get me to think, and I like challenges, and I get bored. So I like to say, when I get bored with my clients, it's not they're necessarily bored with me, I'm bored with me. And so that's my signal that it's time to learn something new. I'm a lifelong learner. I just love to be a student, take courses. One of the beautiful things about my profession is I have to have continuing ed credits every year. And so that kind of encourages me to find, well, what don't I know about? And what do I want to fill in? And it's just been an incredibly wonderful, fabulous career, actually, because I can take these skills that I have and I could be on TV, you know, or I could work in a prison, or I could work at an I could do all kinds of things. And so that part of me that loves freedom and choice, I was just talking to a client a little bit earlier that I am unemployable. I haven't worked for anybody in 38 years, and there are times when I should have. You know, I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life as well, but I like the sense of autonomy. And if I trust you and I really respect you, I can work with you. But if I don't do well. I don't do well with authority that I don't respect. And
it's funny because I actually used that phrase today. I said I'm unemployable, and people feel like I'm almost being too hard on myself or self-deprecating, and it's like, no, it's true. I'm unemployable. I would just wither and die in that corporate environment. But I want to go back to something else you said, which intrigued me. You said, you know, it's basically the classic, it's not you, it's me when it comes to getting bored. So wow, there's so many interesting implications if you think about a marriage, if you think about a friendship, but in the client relationship, when you feel that boredom, you're not blaming them. You're taking responsibility and saying, I need to change. I need to figure out how to inject life and freshness back into the relationship.
Exactly.
It seems intuitive, but I would hazard a guess most people don't do that.
No, and you asked me, you know, kind of at the very beginning, like what were some of my pet peeves? And I don't blame people necessarily, because I think that good mental health, I always like to say, is not a natural sport, it's a learned sport. A lot of the things that you and I are talking about and things that you have discovered for yourself and self-help things and wanting to be a better person, there are certain laws that actually work. The universe works in a certain way. And if we follow these laws, life works. And if we don't, then we keep bucking up against ourselves over and over and over again. But most of our parents didn't learn these skills. My parents were very wise, but there were a lot of things that I had to learn on my own. And once you get to that place where you begin to take responsibility for your own behavior, it changes everything. It just changes everything, because it is so easy to blame. If we look at what's going on in the world and all the hatred and the bias and the I'm better than you and you're better than me and it's such a low level of consciousness. It's such a low level of responsibility. And my whole thing with this mastery under pressure, it's a way to teach the skills that will put you exactly in charge with that word. You know, empowerment has become an overused word, but it really is empowering to recognize I created this. So if I created this, then I could create something else. And you may be one step ahead of me, but I'm already thinking, well, I didn't create COVID, and I didn't create this political landscape, and I didn't create all this. Well, the truth is, we did create the political landscape, maybe not individually, but collectively we did. We live in a country of laws. Who were you electing? You know, if you don't like something, become an activist. I mean, there's always something that you can do. You know, this whole thing with COVID and why it spread so terribly. Well, if people took a little bit more responsibility, that I'm not only responsible for myself, I'm responsible for you, maybe we wouldn't have had so many deaths and so many catastrophes. So there's a couple of things I think that I'd love to share that I think that would be helpful when you talk about the stress and the pressure. And I use a definition that I learned a long time ago, and it still works. So stress is the perceived amount of control that you think you have or you don't have. So the operative word is perceived. So let's just say that I'm afraid of dogs, and I see a dog in my peripheral vision, and my body begins to start to respond, and I get scared. So my perception of dogs is they are dangerous. You are a dog lover, right? And so you see a dog in your peripheral vision, and then you, oh my God, that dog is so cute. And you go over and that dog loves you. So really looking at where is the stress coming from? It's one of my favorite questions. You know, if I'm feeling stressed, where's it coming from? Am I putting it on myself? Is it some self-imposed perfectionist kind of thing that I want to do or think that I need to do? Or is somebody demanding something of me that I don't really agree with? But once I can name what's really going on, I love the reason I love my profession so much is I love to kind of dig, you know, what's really cooking here? You know, what's really the piece that's kind of getting this pattern running? And once we name it and identify it, then we can do something about it.
Well, let's go. Let me see if I got this correct. Stress is the perceived amount of control. What were you saying? That you either have or don't have?
If you have or you don't have.
Okay, so in the case of the dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is most likely there is an irrational fear. Is rational or irrational, right? Rational.
But we're putting a judgment on that.
So
there's a fear.
And the reason I said rational or irrational is because really what I wanted to focus on was the fear.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it relate to stress? Stress is the perceived amount of control. How are control and fear connected?
Okay, well, as soon as I begin to feel out of control, my fear rises. I get scared. That's why people, when they say they're control freaks, they like to control as much as they possibly can. And they're always looking to control some external something or other. But that's not where the control is, because I can't control you. I can't control the technology. I can't do that. But I can control my response to it. So it's always about what's in my control, what's out of my control. And if I'm feeling really out of control and I notice that the anxiety is rising, then I can say, well, how come? I had a client today we were talking about, he said, I get anxious when I lose control of all the different pieces that are happening. And he said, I try to pretend that it's not there and muscle through it. Mm. I said, but what would happen if you looked at that anxiety as your messenger? Why am I anxious? Why am I feeling out of control? Let me see if I can name it. Well, I'm losing all the different pieces that I need to take care of. Oh, okay, so now I named it. I didn't run away from it. I didn't pretend that it didn't exist. I named it, and now it becomes my friend because it's giving me guidance. So part of my program is really about, part of it is learning to use fear as your best teacher. What am I scared of? Why am I scared of it? what's the history of it? What can I do about it? Part of what I, again, love about the depth of my training is we may have things that are kind of affecting your life in the present that you don't really have direct access to, and you haven't got a clue how to change it because you can't even name it. But once we can name it, and once we can sort of find the origins of it, we can change it.
There's one more build that I would, that I would probably layer on top of that, which is there are incidences or circumstances where there is no control, where you actually have no control over your situation. And I would imagine that naming it, right, naming the fear, recognizing how little control you have, being at peace with it and coming to terms with it can actually therefore lead to a low anxiety situation, because even though you have no control, you're not out of control. And I guess that's how it comes together.
That's right. So with COVID, let's just say, we were every person in the entire world has been affected. It was not fun. I not anything that I enjoyed, but I'm not struggling. I get it. I get what I need to do. I get what's in my control, what's out of my control. I choose the fact that I want to stay safe. I choose the fact that I want my family to stay safe. And so, okay, I come to a place of acceptance that this is what I need to do for this amount of time. And when the situation changes, I'll shift. But it's kind of, again, it's going with like what is, and yet I had people that have struggled terribly in this period, just terribly, and people that have lost. And I'm not minimizing any of it. And at the same time, how many people do you know that have kind of taken the sort of like, okay, this is the way it is. What can I do? I'm always looking at what can I do rather than can I do.
Well, look, I mean, me personally, even though my life was out of control in terms of speaking engagements, in terms of events, my story. I pivoted. I started the show. I also lost, just under 30 pounds. And funnily enough, it was the repeatable rituals that you spoke about. It was the focus. So many of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, I can see now, whether I even was aware of it or not, but that's what I practice. And I'm, almost, the rituals, the habitual behavior, it's almost, spectrum like.
Yes.
But it's religious. It's wake up in the morning, it's make the cup of coffee, it's make the second cup of coffee, and it's practicing everything, in order for there to be order.
That's right. So when you think about, and you said it's religious, think about religions and the traditions.
Right.
Every in Jewish tradition, every Friday, and Lent comes every year, Ramadan comes every year. It's the same food. It's the same. So there's a wonderful kind of dynamic, and there's lots of different ways to kind of talk about it. But basically, we need structure to ground us. Too much structure creates rigidity. And this is where that really controlling personality comes from. Okay. We also need freedom. We need autonomy. We need fun. We need life. We need unpredictable things. But too much of that becomes chaotic. And so we're always looking for that right balance, and it's different for everybody. My ex-husband used to say to me all the time, I want you to do the wash on Friday, every Friday. I said, well, if you want to do the wash on every Friday, you can do it. But
You too.
I might do it Saturday. I might do it Sunday. The wash will get done. I didn't like that idea of that ritual. It was too controlling for me. So everybody, there's a balance, but too much of one thing, sends us off the roof. But in times of struggle and times that we have been through right now with so much uncertainty and so much fear, the best thing that you can do is to create those rituals for yourself. It becomes predictable. Every morning I do this. Every day I do this. Every morning I have my meditation group and I meet with the same group every single morning. It's grounding.
I love that. And every day I do my show, and it looks like I now have a new viewer, Nick Swain, and I have Anna Bowman to thank. He says Jaffe runs a great podcast. Thanks for turning me onto them. I listen to them every day now, so I'm a them. I'll take it. Jaffe can be a he, a we, a them. As long, I don't care what you call me, as long as you call me. Greenbaum. Which one is it, by the way? Green.
Oh, that's so funny. So I grew up in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, it was Greenbaum. In New York, when I moved to New York, it was Greenbaum. So you were right on both fronts. I say Greenbaum.
Well, that sounds very New York. Greenbaum.
Yes.
So I want to move into the little bit of marketing part of us, which is you've written this book called Mastery Under Pressure, and maybe we'll bring some of this into the Clubhouse after show as well. But executives strike me as really needing to figure out how to become much more self-aware, how to cope under pressure, how to deal with anxiety. But all of these words, these ideas signify weakness, vulnerability. And as I said in my soliloquy, there are changes happening, but will the corporate world catch on to them in time in terms of understanding how to, control the controllables, but then learn how to cope under pressure, especially when so much is not controllable?
That's a very, very good question and very astute, and has a lot to do with the marketing of what I do, because nobody wants to hear, hey, I got this great therapist for you. Hey, you got a lot of blind spots. So the way that I look at it, and I truly believe this, Joseph, is that the people that I work with, they're already great. They're already great. They've accomplished so many things. They're really, really, really smart. And if they want to be even better, there are certain things that they can learn about themselves that if they choose to be coachable, that they become then the kind of person that everybody wants to work for. I have a list that I wrote up at some point about great leaders. I'll read a little bit of it. They're calm, cool, and collected. They're able to let it go in the moment, which is what we talked about. They exude self-confidence. They're magnetic. Other people want to hang around them. They're highly focused. They have strong communication skills. They're empathic, highly emotionally intelligent, and trustworthy. Again, you might have other characteristics that I haven't thought about. But taking this kind of challenge, and I call it actually a responsibility to the people that work for you, to work to be that kind of leader. Where am I falling short? Where do I lose control? How do I get kind of with people and they know that I'm really annoyed with them? Learning to be a better, the people that are really, really great are highly emotionally intelligent. It can be learned. It's not necessarily, some people are more, born with more of it than others, but reading a situation, being able to read people, kind of, using your intuition, letting it expand. These are all like fabulous things to learn. So it's not like there's anything wrong with you. And the truth is that if the leaders that we have today do not step up, their employees will leave because they can, or, again, pre-COVID, they've been able to, a lot of the young people that they get one job, they're already looking, okay, this is good on my resume. In a year or 2 years, I'm going to be on to the next place. Well, what would happen if people didn't want to leave because your organization was so wonderful to work for and with? That's kind of what we're looking for. And my sort of stealth thing behind this is if I can encourage the leaders to buy into just the same kind of work that you're doing for yourself, that trickles down to an entire organization. And those people are also parents, and they're raising children. And to be able to raise a child from this really early age, you're responsible for that. You like to blame that other kid, but what did you do? What was your part? And so we start to build a generation of people and the next generation that take responsibility and have these skills built into their DNA. And that's how I think we change the world.
Those character traits certainly talk to the new kind of leadership, servant leadership, humble leadership, authentic leadership, but they certainly are not generationally universal at all. So a lot of changes have happened. And I don't know why, but I'm we haven't been overly political on the show in a while, but I'm just thinking to this one senator, Josh Hawley, that chose to vote against this anti, Asian hate resolution. And I think to myself, the absolute lack of leadership, of responsibility, of, the one time that this entire country just needed to see a 0 in the one column, and still there wasn't an absence. How do you even reconcile that? How do you even as a therapist, how do you what's going on in that pea brain?
Well, you know what? This is the way I think about it. I believe that when I look at people or listen to people, I do my best not to judge whether you're good or you're bad I kind of really make my judgment on how awake are you? Where are you on this scale? The greatest, highest vibration is the vibration of love. There's nothing higher than that. And then just underneath love is compassion, and then underneath that I don't have the list kind of in front of me, but they're really high level qualities. And then we get down to the lower level qualities and the negativity and the hate and the bias and the so on. So when I listen to somebody like Josh Hawley and all, people that I don't even have to say it, that part of our population of the nationalists, in terms of consciousness and in terms of training, there's the kinds of things that they are nowhere on the scale. And so there's a wonderful saying that says, if I'm in a valley, that's all I see is the valley around me, and as I climb up the mountain, I get a greater vista and I can see the people below. And then the higher I climb, the greater my vista. And so when I hear people like that, they're in valleys that are about this big, and they have no level of consciousness. And frankly, there are people that are unhelpable, particularly from my perspective. These personality disorders, and I mean, you heard tons of stuff around Trump and narcissistic personality, and if somebody has a deep personality disorder, they never accept responsibility for their own behavior. It is always somebody else's fault. And they're frequently charismatic, and they pull people in, and they pull people in that are like them, that are at the same level of consciousness. So the work that that we're talking about in terms of taking responsibility and self-transformation is to raise your level of awareness that we were all born, very innocent. When we came
Well,
out of
I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that I've just come up with the name. Actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. You've just come up with the name of your next book. You're welcome, by the way. It's going to be called The Valley and the Vista.
Oh, I love that.
I'm gonna pre-order it right now. Let me tell you. But it just speaks so true about raising your game, rising up, and being able to see the world as it could be and should be. We did get one question coming in very quickly, and then I want to make sure we have time to chat about some of these tips for improving performance. And I took a test, and I want you to tell me if I passed it or not. But Seth Sparks asks, how would Tina approach coaching someone with the yips?
So the yips, for somebody that doesn't know, are these involuntary actions that have an origin of some kind of fear or some kind of trauma that happened to that person in an earlier time. And so if we don't deal with it, let's just say, I'm thinking of the baseball player, and I can't remember his name, who was famous for having the yips, that every time he was a catcher, and every time he would attempt to throw the ball, it would just go nowhere. He would mess it up. And then the more he tried, the worse it got. So remember, I was saying that the conscious mind is only so finite, and he's worried all the terrible things, and I'm afraid I'm going to miss, and then he creates that reality. Well, the healing part of it is to work with a trained therapist to be able to track back the origins of that yip. Where did it all start? And I think if I remember the story, he had a father that was extremely critical and, always had him under the gun, and he had a lot of talent. And so, but we have techniques. EMDR is called eye movement desensitization. There's another thing called blind spotting. The guy who worked with that, I know the people who worked with that particular catcher. So it's to be able to release the trauma that's held in long-term memory, and to be able to free it up, because it's like an energetic signature. It's in the cells, and when there's something that comes along that reminds that
Wow.
that of that experience, it just kind of goes off.
Right. So it's clinically suppressed trauma.
Correct.
I mean, there is a distinct diagnosis for it.
That's exactly right.
Wow. Thank you for asking that question, Seth. So in the time we have left, I want to make sure that we talk about your wonderful programs and your wonderful work. One of them is a test. And I'm going to flash up as well a little a way that you can actually take the test, the peak performance quiz, at masteryunderpressure.net and find out how well you cope under pressure. Now, Tina, I took the test. I scored, my commitment score came in at 25 out of 30, and my score came in at 121 out of a total possible 200. So I'm not sure. I think the first number is good because the word nice was mentioned afterwards. The 121 out of 200, I'm not sure. How did I stack up?
Well, actually, the real value of it is to make a time with me that we can go over your test, because I offer that for somebody who takes the test and wants a 30-minute consultation to kind of review it. But basically, I looked at it right before we kind of came on, and you're a little bit all over the place. There are certain things that you are very strong, and there are other things that you need work with. And so again, diagnostically, it's just great to see, well, I don't really need to put a lot of attention on this thing, but basically we teach focus, relaxation, how to deal with this negative self-talk, how to visualize, and dealing with fear. And so again, I don't have it in front of me, Joseph, but but I can, once we talk about it and I look at it, you can see pretty quickly, it's not the total score necessarily, particularly of those 5 topics. Your commitment level is, yes, that's pretty high. I want to do something about it. I want to learn. I want to grow.
I mean, that is so me, by the way, all over the show. It's the same, even when I've done the Myers-Briggs, and I'm either extreme left brain or extreme right brain. And I'm kind of all over the show. I mean, that is, for example, what I will do is I will double and triple down on the stuff that I know I can control. For example, putting on a daily show, being able to perfect my craft almost obsessively, but at the expense of neglecting something else, which might be maybe the business side of it as well. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll run away from that, and I'll just ignore it. It's like the bills come and I don't open up the envelope, because that way I don't have to be exposed to the trauma. So I'm a very simple, primitive brain, let me tell you.
Well, I mean, the truth is that you may be extreme in some things, but all of us have those areas that we do really well and that we really love. And that's what we want to spend our time on. And at the same time, it might be very glaring about the things that we're not so great at. And I'll tell you one of the best pieces of advice I got from somebody who was kind of working with founders. And he said, the difference between a solopreneur and a founder is a founder has a team, and the solopreneur does it by themselves. And I have learned through many schools of hard knocks and a lot of wasted money and all kinds of things to do what I want to do in terms of the scale that I want to do it. And I'm thinking the same thing for you. It's impossible to do it by myself. Too many moving parts, too many parts that I don't want to do. And so there's lots of ways that, I've done a lot of trades where people want my services and I want theirs, that have kind of gotten me going for things. But having a team and not having to be in charge of everything and to have it done, like heaven.
It is. I mean, it is the ultimate liberation and meditative nirvana, which is to lighten the load. I mean, in my soliloquy was all over that, right? It was about the fact it's asking for help, but it's also letting go. And I have an intern starting. I mean, the poor high school senior, he has no idea what he's in for, because I don't even know if I can let him manage my just the birthdays, which is like just okay, you can do the birthdays, but you can't write the soliloquy. But you're right, it's letting go, and being able to do that in a way that allows for growth, quite frankly.
It really does. And you will be amazed at how wonderful, relaxing it is. Once you can let it go and give it to somebody else. You sent me all those things this morning that and I sent it to the person who does all my social media, and it's all up and it looks professional and it's done. And I got to work with clients and be here, and we're all the better for it.
You see, you have someone that does your social media. That's my point.
Well, I didn't always, and I hated it. I hated it the way that you hate looking at the bills, because it's not in my wheelhouse. I don't think that way. I don't like that level of detail. It's just not enjoyable to me. This is enjoyable to me. This is like delicious.
Well, I am full. I'm satiated. This was delicious as well. What a beautiful word to describe it. This has just been time well spent, and we're lucky enough to go into Clubhouse and spend a little bit more time together. This has been both Tina Greenbaum and Greenbaum, the optimal performance specialist. And I really loved how, you know, you spoke about the fact that in many respects, it's not about fixing or broken. It's about taking, you know, good people and making them even better. And I love how you've phrased that. Tina Greenbaum is the author of the upcoming The Valley and the Vista. Look for it wherever books are sold. You can follow her on Twitter, Mastery Pressure, or on Instagram, Mastery Under Pressure. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. You can connect with her on Facebook. Please go out and buy Mastery Under Pressure. All that stands between you and your goals is you, obviously. How do you cope under pressure? Take the peak performance quiz at masteryunderpressure.net. And wait, there is more. Not only can you connect with Tina at masteryunderpressure.com, but she is looking for 12 good people, good men, that's another movie, or woman, 12 participants for her Mastery Under Pressure 90-day program for high impact leaders that are in high stakes environments. Go to masterycalendar.com if you want to be one of the jury. How does that sound?
It sounds. Thank you.
No, thank you. And look, one of the things, if you've watched the show, you would know that the final word on my guests always comes down to one Chuck Norris. And I have no doubt that Chuck Norris is going to say what I think he's going to say.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
So I knew we would say that. Let's go to Clubhouse, and I will be back tomorrow morning with Tom Morris. Thank you, Tina. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.